I'd like to call the Town of Tallulah Falls Planning and Zoning Commission Board meeting at a regular scheduled meeting, March the 13th, 2023 at 6 p.m. Would anyone like to make any changes or adopt the agenda as written? I think there is, don't we need to add the Firewise? Just add it to the agenda.
Discussion?
Yeah,
Yeah,
to the
I
discussion.
think that's right.
Okay,
I thought it was in there, my mistake.
Was with our packet.
it's in our package, it's just not on the agenda. All right, so we're going to add the Firewise discussion or Firewise community discussion
And
to
with
our.
that, I want to add the erosion control as well. So both of those things kind of go hand in hand.
All right, would you like to make a motion to add that and approve the agenda?
Yeah. Yes.
All right, second,
Second.
all in favor? Motion carried. All right, approval of the minutes from February 15th, 2024. I've looked over them. And I looked great. Anyone would like to make the motion to approve the minutes from February 15th?
Make a motion to approve the minutes from February 15th.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Motion approved. It says we have no old business, but what we do know is a review of the tree ordinance that we made recommendations for the city council back in 2021. There's a copy of those recommendations. I was asked by the community to revisit this. And when I talked to Linda, she says that the city council did not vote on what we had currently made recommendations for. So,
But they didn't vote at all,
So basically, we're fixing something that hasn't even been looked at yet.
I think they looked at it, I just don't think it was voted on. I think it's too stringent for what they're wanting. Of course, we make the recommendations, they can make changes to those recommendations, so I'm not sure why it just didn't get changed for the city council, but we'll revisit it. Get to it. So I guess it starts with the back of page 3 or page 2, with section 1. And I'm not sure what it was that they did not like about it, so we can just go through section by section if you want to.
huh?
So the purpose of these standards is to facilitate preserving and or replacement of trees as part of the land development, building construction process that is within the city. Benefits derived from trees, protection, and replanting included. So we all agree that 1 through 10 there is nothing that we want to change. Do you have a copy of this?
I do not.
I don't have an extra.
I might be able to pull it up on Unicode, isn't it?
No, it should be in the packet that was emailed out.
I have
If you don't, I can try to send it to you.
I have it on my email, so I
Yeah,
can probably read through if she wants to look at this on the hard copy.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I can just look at my phone.
You got better eyes than I do, my friend.
So I don't know what's in there.
But on the purposes, there are a couple of things that, I think trees also add. It's like a wind protection for, it's just like on fields where you have you don't want the wind blowing on your soil away and stuff. So wind is another purpose of keeping trees, and also temperature buffering. A forest is cooler than an open field. And I don't know, those might be, a couple of things to add, just to kind of hammer in the benefits of, having a reasonable tree ordinance.
Well, and in saying that, I think it might be smart for us to write a cover sheet. And when we resubmit this, we maybe write a cover sheet with some bullet points on it, of the considerations that were made. Why we did what we did, or why we said what we said.
Yeah.
And those are all energy preserving ideas of why trees are important.
Yeah.
And there are ideas of why some of them aren't a good idea around your
Right,
house.
right.
There's both ways.
Yeah, which works into the Firewise discussion.
Exactly.
You know, and that zone around your house to create a buffer in case there is a fire, but.
Right.
Yeah, so.
But maybe if we argue our case a little bit, maybe it'll make it more sensible. I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, but those ideas that you just mentioned are obvious to some people and some people not, so.
Using my horticulture degree, stuff.
Yeah.
There you go.
Well, that's great. It's another
I knew that
tool.
coming along someday.
Alright, so we're gonna add, wind protection and temperature.
Buffering. Temperature reduction, reduction, I'm also the buffering, because buffer can work in two directions. Temperature reduction. Might be a better word, but.
Okay, so we've got the definition, of course, we all know what that means. It's the drain field, septic tanks means, the footprints. What the specimen of trees is, the tops, the tree leanings, the tree cuttings, the tree trimmings. I mean, all those are pretty standard. I mean, do y'all see anything wrong with section 2 as far as the definition? I mean,
I don't,
I think as we go through, if we see things that were missed, maybe we could, throw in like, oh, what does that mean? And we could, put it up there, but as we go through it, I think maybe some things will pop up. We might make a bigger tree ordinance suggestion and that'll.
Yeah.
So,
well, do we all agree that we want to keep the, someone cutting trees must obtain a cutting or tree cutting permit?
yes, I think.
I think that, yeah.
And one thing, I think it's coming later is with permits, like, I don't think there should be a permit fee for an application fee, but there should be a permit fee, maybe, a slight permit fee. I think there is something mentioned about application fee, like, no one should be hindered from applying. And especially if it's something that's rejected, so we just keep like throwing money, so I think a permit fee, but an application fee would be, a bit.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because other people are like, I'm not gonna do it, I'm just gonna cut my tree down and have to pay a fee, but if there's just no application fee, they might be more willing to
If they have
comply.
a plan too.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, and the actual permit should have good directions of what we're looking for. I mean, if you're gonna fill this out, you need to know that you can't cut it or you can cut it, what do you have to do?
What you're gonna do with it after it's cut.
Did we give her a,
I think that's in here too, yeah.
okay,
And the living up one, the B one, tree trimming B, up to 12 feet, that's in the Firewise. Also about living up stuff off the ground, so it doesn't catch on fire, so I think that's also a good one in the tree trimming section.
Yeah, they want you to keep your underbrush and things clean on your property, which is difficult depending on how much property you own or how it lies.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
again, it's easy. I mean, when you have a 40-degree incline, it's pretty hard to get the underbrush out of that, but I mean, it's an idea.
Yeah.
That's why I think that the Firewise is kind of like a guideline as an idea of a community-based thing. There's some properties that you can do it and you can't.
Yeah, one size doesn't fit all.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that's true with everything.
Mhm.
So where are we at? We'll pass the cutting permit.
yeah, we're on section, 4.
Now, I have some circles on my stuff,
I do
I do
too.
too.
and I'm wondering what that's all about. We need to kind of like question that amongst ourselves of what we're doing.
maybe these are the sections that they want to remove or revisit.
Yeah, I'd like to have some more input maybe from the council about what the likes and the dislikes and, you know, to see where we need to pinpoint where their problem areas are and see if there's some kind of common ground we can come to as far as getting this done, because quite frankly, I think at this point, it's a good idea maybe try to get this done, and if they want to simplify things, that's fine. But we kind of might need a little direction as to,
Yeah, and something's too vague also, then it's not enforceable, right? So you have to have some specifics. So I think to have too loose of one, we just have you have an ordinance with no teeth, and that probably might be too vague to be enforceable. Not that I'm a lawyer, but.
no,
That's what crime shows.
right.
Looks like most of the ones that are circled are in section 12.
Those
Yeah.
circles are reference numbers not in our current ordinance, where we use things from other people's.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay.
So we need to have those removed.
Yeah,
That's why we circled them, because we wanted those removed.
they're circled because they don't tap out anything in our ordinance.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so for criteria for the application would be evaluated by the police chief, the zoning administrator, the city council. The number of trees, the value of the trees, the condition of the trees, the environmental impact of cutting and topping and trimming of the trees, the aesthetics, the applicant's desire, any landscape plan, public safety, or other federal, state, and local ordinance regulation. So, I don't see anything wrong with either of those. I mean, that's,
Yeah, I mean, a determination of the tree is a specimen tree, maybe that, but.
I mean, what would that mean? Determination of the tree is a specimen tree.
Which ones we're okay with cutting down versus not cutting down.
Oh, okay, right.
We have, there's a whole section back there that talks about
Oh, yes.
specimen trees.
Yeah, very end.
I
Ones that
remember
we
that,
have
I just couldn't
preference towards
remember.
keeping.
Yeah, and that's a good criteria to look at least. These are, these are native trees, whatever, and they don't break and fall, as easy.
Well, some of them help with erosion control.
Yeah, like
This, you know, that you're not supposed to because of FEMA recommendations or statewide recommendations. Because, they help with erosion control.
I keep coming back to one, take that one off. All right, the procedures. Any landlord in the city wanting to cut, trim, top, or remove a tree must first complete an application. Okay, so the location is part of the application process of when you're submitting it. Describing the purpose of cutting, trimming, topping, and removing. The accompanying where required with the application fee. So we're gonna remove the application fee and put a permit fee out there.
where were we now on that one? On,
Oh, 3, section 5.3.
that's where I saw that, yeah,
So we'll just eliminate that, right?
yeah. Big company were required by application, yeah, and maybe later we'll have a mention a permit fee or something like that. If approved, then there would be a permit fee. If that's even necessary, I don't know. The number one, so identify location on a plat or sketch of each tree to be cut, top, trimmed, or removed. In order to identify trees, by location, the applicant must, prior to submitting an application, either mark each tree by placing a colored ribbon. So identifying the location of each tree to be cut on a plat or a sketch. I think really just if you put a ribbon around it, I mean, maybe that would make it more simple than having to draw. Like I want to cut these trees, mark them.
Well, unless you work with a landscape architecture, comes in with CAD design.
Right. But I think that a visual marking of the tree is important. And that, someone could submit that if they wanted to, but Yeah, I look at a plat or a sketch of each tree, it's kind of, I mean, it'll be great, but maybe it kind of cumbersome if you got like 100 trees, like you just put like a
Do a
square.
general location.
and a
of
dot,
where it
dot,
is on
dot.
your-
Yeah,
On your plat, where it is on your property.
on a plat or sketch with
Yeah,
each tree.
So you'll know, go look over here to the left of the house.
Yeah,
Well, and if you go out there and you mark the trees and the one who is approving the permit goes out there and, you know,
Yeah.
it's not much. I mean, because if you're gonna hire a tree company to come out, they're gonna need to know which tree it is anyway.
yeah, so I think the marking is important, and maybe, yeah, it doesn't really say how detailed the sketch, so that's really not that difficult. So make it, wing it,
Just I think where you can get there and look at it.
so, okay.
So number 4, identify the person or business entity who will be cutting the trees, like Thomas will cut trees at our house. We're insured, but it's because our property is insured, not so much for liability insurance for that.
Yeah, you should be able to cut your own trees.
Yeah,
Um,
so,
Yeah, I think that would probably only depend if you hired somebody else.
yeah,
Oh, it says unless the homeowner. Unless the homeowner assigns an affidavit of responsibility for damage.
maybe, yeah.
Pretty,
go ahead.
which is pretty common, because a lot of people, there's companies, there's guys out there that cut trees that aren't insured.
Yeah,
But if you're releasing the town, from what I read, that responsibility, if they're not insured, you the landowner will be responsible. That's how I read that.
yeah.
Yeah, and you have to be careful too, because homeowners insurance only covers certain aspects.
Yeah.
You're gonna get into a mudslinging contest, if the guy cutting the tree on your property falls and damages somebody else's house.
Yeah, and you'll be liable
That's,
for
that,
that. on your property.
that starts to be a little bit of a sticky point.
Yeah.
And now you're looking at who owns what and how much you have, and liability insurance, and pointing fingers while your neighbor has a broken house. That's where a mechanic's liability and insurance comes into play. That's why that was put in there and why it was important.
Oh, just
Because of damage to someone else's property. You have to, I mean, when someone's working on your own property and they might get homeowners and things like that, it's kind of gray area. But when you start creating damage to someone else's property, homeowners insurance is limited on its liability.
Okay,
I mean, it's in there. It shows it's in there, most homeowners. But how does our county regulate that? Does everybody have homeowners insurance? No.
You're not required to unless you have a.
If you own your own home, you're not
Yeah.
really required to.
If you have a bank phone, you can cut that.
yeah,
So we need to be careful, I think, for liability purposes. About who's cutting trees down it, and of course, how many and how big and what. You know what I mean? As a homeowner, I'm not afraid to go out and
yeah,
cut a 20 foot tree down on my own property.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
That's a-
Depending on the location,
right. I mean, either I don't have any, my trees couldn't hit anybody.
but I'm not gonna go out there and cut 20
Yeah,
or 30 trees. So if you're building a new home, you probably wanna look at a professional.
well, that's in, 6B, cutting, trimming, and removing trees on another person's land will be required a signed written permission from the homeowner. So,
it's like you're helping your neighbor out, yeah, right?
yeah,
Oh, that seems weird.
Well, if I don't like the Harry's trees in my yard, I just go out there and start cutting all willy-nilly because I know my property.
cutting, trimming, or removing trees on another person's.
Oh, I
land
see.
is Required.
That
See,
could be a
that's-
protection, right? If someone neighbors, I'm gonna cut this tree, it's been bugging me for years, it's hanging over my fence, and then, yeah,
Yeah,
And
okay, that's actually.
So that's just
I would never
part of
thought about
the-
that.
they can actually go at the property line and cut the tree completely straight up and destroy the tree.
Yeah,
And that's kind of like I don't know,
yeah.
it's harder.
So this was borrowed from, someone else.
We put together, I think, several of
Yeah,
them.
so 3 or 4.
Okay, yeah, I thought that's a good one too. I never would have thought about that angle, but
I mean,
Sky
yeah, people should
Valley
definitely
is
have
one.
permission before you do it.
Yeah.
Even though it's in your area, but it's someone else's tree, I think you should still have permission.
And I think it takes the liability of the city
Oh,
if you don't get that permit and we don't know that you're cutting your neighbor's tree. That's gonna be a civil suit between the two of you. If I had a permit from the city, then the city's also involved in my lawsuit.
Yeah,
So,
good point.
so we'd have to leave that. That's,
That's important.
I mean, let's face it, some people are pretty particular about their trees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not, if y'all wanna come cut some of my trees. I'm surrounded by them everywhere. The applicant must certify familiar with terms of the article. All right, so they gotta be familiar with our ordinance.
I think on the application, there could be, that clause could be just put into the application, right? That statement number C. But yeah, seems like no harm, right? It's like I certify that I'm familiar with the terms of this. You know,
Or to sign on the permit
right, right, we sign
with
the permit.
whoever's gonna be conducting the tree removal.
Yeah.
If it's a different person,
Sure.
can't pick it up till he both comes on.
Okay, so D, the police chief shall, within 10 days of the filing of the application, visit the property, confirm that the application is complete and considered. I mean, we just take out the section 12-19. I mean, that's,
And one, so is the police chief the one who has to do it because of their law enforcement?
it's just, she's part of our, we ain't got many employees, so it's
They're the only.
Linda,
the two, aren't
yeah.
Well, no, now we have Chris, the other police officer.
Yeah, she can delegate.
Yeah.
She can delegate, but that's run through her office.
Yes, police chief or other designated city official.
Yeah, I think we probably should talk to the attorney about how to work that.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe add or other designated city official, so in case the police chief can't do it, then someone else could step in. I'm gonna be one of us, if you wanna go look and. Okay, that tree's 8 inches around and.
I mean, and I don't see us getting these permits daily or even weekly, I think. You know, unless somebody's coming in and they're gonna have a building permit, you know, then they add this to it, but otherwise. All right, the zoning administrator shall within 5 business days of the receipt of the recommendation of the police chief approves or disapproves. There's nothing wrong with that either. 5 days is a full work week.
Yeah, that's kind of looking out for the person that's trying to get the permit facility.
Yeah, just to be expeditious, they're not waiting like 6 months.
Yeah, because if they hire somebody to do the job, they'll be put on the back burner if they don't get their,
Yeah.
their stuff ready.
And I think we probably would give, move it faster if it's a hazard that needs to be taken care of right away.
Mhm.
I mean, I don't see them not doing that.
Well, yeah, I think they address emergency
Yeah, we
situations
talked about that.
too.
And if the applicant is dissatisfied with the police chief or the zoning administrator, of course, they can bring it before the city council
Mhm.
to provide such an appeal. Nothing wrong with that one.
That's a good one.
Excuse me, Sissy, before you move off the previous section, can I get clarification on number 3 recommendation? Are you deleting number 3 or changing the wording?
Just deleting it. We're gonna talk about a permit fee instead of an
Got it.
application fee.
Thank you.
So you can come it in the application, but if you don't get it approved, you don't have to pay. But if you get it approved, you have to pay a permit fee to cut those trees.
Yeah,
So
or
it-
whatever that may be, right?
Yeah.
Or no permit fee, right? Just encourage people to do it.
It's up to the council, I mean, honestly,
Yeah.
whether they wanna charge a fee for it or not. I mean,
I think you have more participation if there's no fees.
Yeah,
You're gonna have, it's be tough to get participation.
yeah,
I've
I don't think it's about the fee, it's about asking permission instead of forgiveness.
Yeah, so you put some teeth into some penalties and.
Right, if there's an appeal provided, they have 7 days to, or prior to 7 days of the next regular scheduled meeting of the city, such appeal shall be placed on the agenda for consideration. If the appeal is filed 6 days or less from the next regular scheduled meeting of the city, the appeal to be placed on the following agenda. Okay, that gives them, I mean, that's
It's
still.
a small town, how hard would it be to put something on the agenda? Right,
Mhm.
24 hours, like, just stick it in there and, I mean, we have public comment and.
I mean, you
Cause someone's
got
got to
city
wait.
council who is
another
right
month.
here,
Yeah.
so, yeah, I would think.
Those
so.
people have a month though to get that tree, so I would. Get rid of the,
I would too, I'd take it all out. I mean, if they going to make an appeal before the city council, it should be put on the following meeting.
Yeah.
Whether it's
So
7
you
days
wanna
or
just
4.
add that to the top part. If an appeal is filed, it will appear on the agenda of the next city council meeting.
Yeah,
whether it's, you know,
I mean, we gotta take something out or they're gonna say, well, we y'all didn't do anything.
Yeah, I don't think this part is the part they have problems with.
it's
Yeah.
the one that's. Yeah,
On the agenda of the next scheduled meeting.
Same thing, the city council is considering an appeal, will hear from the applicant, the police chief, the zoning administrator, and other persons who may wish to provide information. Okay, there's nothing wrong with that. That would just be at the meeting that has been set.
And then they're gonna make their decision based off of what's in here.
In no instance will more than 25% of the trees remaining outside of the footprint be cut and removed unless approved by the city council under conditions upon an approval landscape plan. Okay, so if you're gonna go out here and cut an acre of trees, it needs to have a landscape plan
Mhm.
prepared by an architect.
I would say, I mean, there's so much information online, I think some people have a knack for designing, I don't know that they have to hire a landscape architect or designer to do that, I think. I mean,
But in that, are you gonna cover erosion control? And what we'll do if you were to chop down that much?
Yeah.
What would did the landscape architect give you that information?
Well, this was why that's in there, because erosion control, you have to start looking at each acre.
Yeah,
And if you read further in, there's 60 feet from the structure allowed to be cleared. So that's called the footprint. So if you take the structure, so if you take the structure and you go out 60 feet from that structure, that's what this allows. That's a maximum. Now, Firewise recommends a minimum of 30.
yeah,
So you have 30 to 60 feet. Now, if you take
so you can take every tree out within 60 feet. of the
well, let
structure.
me finish my thought, and then you can figure out why we talked about the 25%.
Mhm.
So if you take 60 feet out around an entire structure, you can't go that much more, because what happens is on a slope, people clear everything down.
Yeah.
Now they have this wonderful vista view, and that's what we're talking about here.
Yeah,
Because I think everybody should be allowed to do what they want, as long as everybody can do it. So if everybody on the top of this mountain cleared all their trees down to the bottom of their property line, those houses would eventually slide down the mountain. So you can't pick and choose who is allowed to do what. You have to make sure that everybody could do what you're allowing.
Yeah.
So I know it sounds like a lot at the 60 feet, but when you look at an acre of ground with all filled with trees, it's not. But that's why you start to limit what people can do on top of that.
I like the 25% part. I was just questioning whether you need them. I mean, how you can address erosion control and make a requirement for
It's
that
a,
within it.
it's a happy dance, I'll tell you,
But do you need a landscape architect or designer? I was wondering about that cost for people.
well, I mean, it depends on the property, I guess.
Cause if the zoning and planning are looking at these things, we could say,
Maybe we should word it differently. Maybe we should talk about, sloped land needing an architect. Maybe a flat land, someone that's, because we have to get out of the idea of only talking about Hickory Nut Mountain.
right.
This isn't about Hickory Nut Mountain.
Right.
This is about Tallulah Falls.
Right,
So we have to all, including myself, get out of the mindset of
Nice.
that's, that mountain deal.
our one ridge line.
Exactly, because
Yeah.
we have people that live out in flat areas that doesn't, you don't need an architect maybe. You can come up with a plan on your own.
I live on
You
flat land.
know, so I'm thinking that maybe a more complicated area might need a,
I mean, silt fences and stuff like that, and that's, I don't know if the county mandates that,
another,
but, Georgia Power,
Depends
like,
on how much acreage you're clearing.
okay,
yeah.
So why don't we end it where it says approved landscape plan, period? And it has to be approved by the city council.
Yeah.
And conditions
city
upon.
council or zoning and planning, right?
Now, this would,
Go on
once
there.
it leaves us, they make those recommendations, or we make the recommendations. They set the law, and then it's left up to them whether they approve the landscape plan. And then take out the prepared by landscape architect.
Yeah, upon an improved landscape, plan, I think that's a
And
good,
then,
and we
you
could
know,
consider slow, or they could consider slow.
and then we
Or
put
they can
in
just
something
say-
about the buildings.
Say we don't approve that plan, but if it's more than 25%, say we don't approve that plan unless you get a landscape architecture or somebody to come in and say that the erosion, these are our issues and you need to pay at that point, have somebody come in and
There you go.
say that it's not gonna be an issue.
Yeah. I think that's a great, and the council that could be their thing, like, no, we don't like this, and they could put that on them. Cause they're the final say so. Or they are.
Yeah, because we're making recommendations, and our recommendation is that not every property is the same.
Mhm.
You have to look at them individually.
And some of this, it's new construction, okay, that's fine. That sounds like new construction.
Yeah, so the new construction is a whole new ordinance. I mean, if they're going to come in and get a building permit, and the building location is changed from original footprint submitted to the building inspector, I say all that flies back onto the zoning officer who is approving their building permit. Is that not in their building permit that they can only clear? I mean, can we take that out, or is that something that has to be?
Yeah, I don't, that's a question for Linda probably,
No,
you know what I
the
mean?
building location is changed from the original
Yeah.
footprint submitted to the building inspector. Do we have a building inspector?
Well, no.
Not every
Yeah,
Yeah, that whole thing needs, the language needs to change. It's kind of an excerpt of something.
so it can just be submitted to receive your building permit.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's just a whole confusing
Submitted
statement.
to the zoning administrator,
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that one needs, I think that could be reworded.
but it's zoning administrator.
but it could also just be fall back to the building permit. I mean, 'cause,
Yeah, if it changes after you if you change it after you received your permit, then
yeah,
you're gonna.
You'll be in violation.
You'll be in violation of it.
Mhm.
You can't submit one thing and then decide to get around the rules.
And then again, we're gonna
Plan B.
take that out as far as the required by section 12-1.7. And I guess we're gonna take out the sentence before that. This section will require the property owner to replace the number of trees cut per same criteria. In addition, the property owner must obtain a new permit to cut, top, or trim. I just think if it's a violation, the buck stops here and you have to come for
Yeah, any changes to the original building permit
Yeah.
will require them to get it. Require something to get,
It should be resubmitted,
yeah, yeah,
that's all.
yeah, there you
I
go,
mean, when you should make changes, you have to resubmit,
yeah.
that's all there is to it.
How are you gonna resubmit after you cut down all these trees?
Well, that's why that says what it says, you know, but.
Yeah, that's, I mean, that's what it's going after. It's making you replace the trees you shouldn't have cut down.
Yeah,
Yeah.
with little teeny wisp of trees. The lady, she cut down like 5 trees in
Yeah,
her yard.
exactly, that's the argument here,
And
is
she
you're
thinks she's gonna get
cutting
fined.
100-year-old growths down and replacing them with a 20-foot
Little
tree.
twigs.
That's why I think the way it referred back to was it was making you purchase bigger, nicer, not a seedling.
Yeah, that's on back in here too. isn't it?
It is.
Well,
Well, and here is where the erosion will come in, lay out the project site, utility and grading plans should accommodate the required tree protective zones. Utilities must be placed along the corridor between the protective tree zone.
We only have protected.
that's, it is between your buffers, between your houses, your properties. We have protected zones in
Okay,
here, written in here, where you can't just cut everything to the edge. They wanna keep the buffer between property owners.
okay, I didn't make sure, and buffers, you
And
talk
you know,
about this,
there's nothing saying that we have to fix that particular section now.
yeah,
We can put a circle around that, think on it, and come back to it.
might just be a matter of rewording it.
Yeah,
Different way.
exactly. I mean, if, you know, if we were all in agreement that maybe that needs some work. You know, we can put an asterisk next to it, think on it for a little bit, maybe come up with some decent ideas. Make it a little less complicated, because that's what we were asked for.
Mhm.
It should be the.
So let's just put a question mark beside that.
Decide what item?
Protected zones.
Section 8, oh.
It's under new construction.
New construction, section 8, new construction.
I think it just could be worded a little bit differently, so it's not complicated to people and we're, you know, I'm a little bit about the. New permits for cutting tree tops and trimming and all this stuff. Normally with new construction, you're not trimming and topping. You're making a footprint for the house. Going in there and you're clearing out a certain section. And what we need to focus on is when you say, this is where I'm putting my house, because not only do you need to tell us that, you have to tell the septic system and all those that, so you can't just sit there and just move your house arbitrarily. There's a lot of caveats to that.
Mhm.
But what we're talking about in this tree ordinance is someone coming along and saying, I'm gonna put my house here, and they cut their 60-foot buffer around their own, and then they move it back 30 feet, and they cut another 30. You know, this is what that kind of pertains to,
Mhm.
but I think it could be a little more simple, I guess. I mean, I don't think we have to get into topping trees and all that. I think we might be able to remove some of that. Cause essentially what we're talking about is somebody coming in and clearing an area for a house. If that's where you say your house is going, then let's leave it there.
She said like moving
If
4
you
times.
wanna
and taking every
move
tree
that,
down, right?
Let's resubmit and we'll re-talk about it, but. Like Chrissy said, if you go in there and you clear. And then you start talking about moving your house, that's a problem, because you've already cut trees out. You can't replace old growth trees. You know, so that's kind of where that was going. But I mean, if we think we could word it differently, I think we need to think about it a little bit. Cause it's an important part. Especially with new construction, because quite frankly, there's been some new construction here. That hasn't even happened. They cleared out far too many trees, not even as far as I'm concerned, but as far as the whole community is concerned. You know, and I think that's something we need to be careful about, is clear cutting. And that's what that paragraph is getting into, is clear cutting of trees.
Yeah.
More overstepping your footprint.
Yeah, there's a way to do it tastefully and, you know, aesthetically to cut and still have views.
And again, this is where the Firewise community comes in and, you know, the distances that we talk about and all that, and I wanna take everything, I think we should take everything into consideration.
I think that, yeah, because it is a protective thing, there's a protective thing to have, not have all these trees bumped up your house, so some removal and that buffer you're talking about where they can cut. There's some necessary things, because you don't want trees burning next to your house and catching your roof on fire.
Well, I think it needs more attention and maybe we should go through and get some of the areas that we need to concentrate on and or, I mean, we could do like Sissy started and going through it and then just stop and go through it some more.
Yeah,
We can do that as well. I mean, whatever anybody wants to
well, I
do.
know that we've just got to, we either got to simplify it or we got to. I mean, I wish we knew exactly what they didn't like.
But on that,
No, we don't get that kind of input.
Well, if we can't finish it all tonight, they'll have their meeting again before we will,
That's true.
and say.
the meeting tomorrow's been canceled,
Oh, it has?
Yeah,
"Oh,
so you technically would have another meeting, wouldn't you?
How'd you find that
yeah.
I'm on the email list.
out? I didn't get that email, I have to check, maybe I did get it. Huh,
Linda said that from her understanding, it was just too restrictive.
If I could just interject in the taxpayer.
yeah,
In respect, I've not served on this committee. I don't know how many hours this committee has done previously. But I'm assuming it's been a lot, and I appreciate you taking the time this evening to go back through here and see about any necessary revisions, but you have a work product you're gonna submit to the council. It's their responsibility to come back and look and say, how about wordsmithing this, this, and this. And I'm just giving respect to each committee as they use their time and
I
knowledge
couldn't agree more.
in any work product.
I couldn't agree more because it's a waste of time for us to guess at what. I mean, we could do this for the rest of our lives.
Yeah, I think we should make recommendations and they change it how they want to and vote on it. They either take it out, put it in, or add to it. I mean,
You can't keep kicking the ball back and forth.
yeah, because we have 5 more years and there'll be no tree ordinance, right? Just keep. These, they can tell us what they want. We can,
Yeah, I agree.
or, you know,
I mean, in full disclosure, I'm not looking at every sentence of this, but I respect the time and knowledge that this committee has worked in the past.
And, I mean, we had quite a few eyes on this, to be honest with you.
yeah.
We've had people come in
Barbara
and
and
give,
Mike was on here when we done this, right?
exactly.
So, Um,
We've even had the public involved in it at one point in time before we submitted it,
yeah, we did.
so.
Well, all your meetings have been public.
So clear cutting.
I'm
I
not,
mean,
there's not too much I wanna move on about the clear cutting, cause I wanna make sure people understand that that's not really a good option.
Yeah, yeah,
And I mean, I don't
Not
know,
unless, I think unless you're in a big. Like agriculture and you're getting rid of some timber and you're gonna be replacing it with others, like normally you normally would for a large piece of land. Like over there on your road, Sissy, there's lots of large tracts over there where. You really have to do that
mhm.
ever so often, you have
Oh,
to.
yeah,
cut it and
we're
everything.
covered
So
up with rhododendrons and laurel. And I have to, I mean, we made trails for the boys and honest to goodness, I hadn't followed this.
Well, we haven't had one, so.
Well,
But, you know, you got larger ag tracts that are gonna need to clear cut
yeah.
and replant and.
Well, there's a way, I mean, like over in, like land over in, Mount Rest, And so over there, they've been logging, you know, so there's tons of US Forest Service. And so US Forest Service come in and some of the permits they've given for people to come and log. Like some people come in and, but they'll still leave some specimen trees dotted through their landscape. And then there's some private land that's been logged also. And on that private land, they didn't leave one tree. But they are replacing a species, so they had these bigger hardwood cedar trees and then come in and planted some smaller pines, I just saw them out there the other day doing it. So they went over all of it, but when I look at it, or even on the agricultural stuff, the ones that leave a few seed trees of hardwoods and just for wildlife and, you know, that's for hunting and I think there's just some canopy left there, so sometimes there's even a way in agriculture to do it better. So I think like absolute clear cutting, I don't like personally, but I do like select cutting. And even select cutting can mean, you know, even like every 30, 40 feet, just leaving a tree. And drive down Chattooga Ridge Road and you'll see it's like it opens up these great views, but there's still some trees there. And of course, those trees grow back fast and in 5 years, you won't know they cut it, but in the meantime, you do have, you know, but once again, it's on agriculture, it's not really a lot of what we're gonna be dealing with, but.
Well, so far we haven't talked about zoning.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I think the buffers, we leave in the required undisturbed buffer and the buffers that must be replanted. But that's number one, must provide 100% visual barrier to a height 6 feet within 2 years. I mean,
Yeah, that's,
Take
I mean,
that out.
100%,
Mhm.
like, maybe. Yeah,
you know,
what is, well, maybe the buffer is not really defined anywhere, what the required undisturbed
well,
buffer.
the buffer is the 25%. I mean, if you've got your floor plan or footprint, and then that section around it.
I
So,
don't think that's buffer.
No,
To the
no,
buffer. I would think
buffer would be-
buffer is
no,
your 20 feet on
The
your property line.
buffer is between one neighbor to another. It's to designate different property lines.
maybe,
And normally they have a setback off of the property line. And then you have your buffer, 1 or 2 rows of vegetation. And it has to achieve a certain height in a certain year. And this pertains to new construction. So if you came to new construction and you didn't have anything on your.
cutting right to the property line, right? Yeah.
Or if you didn't have anything there to begin with.
Yeah.
They're giving you guidelines as to putting a buffer there between homes. So that you have a natural fence or privacy that both can, you know.
So maybe, should we put in there what the required buffer is? Just, I know, I guess maybe that's redundant, but just for clarity for this ordinance, say a required buffer along property lines of X number of feet, whatever it is for the.
I think we probably should move that to a definition.
Okay, yeah,
Put buffer in
Okay.
definition.
add to definition, and that way at least people know what we're talking about, and that would be the required, whatever the, is it 20 feet, you said?
I think,
That's-
20 feet comes to mind,
That's
I'm not
for me
sure.
too, but
That's
it's
an R1.
either 10 or 20.
R1, R2 zoning, multifamily zoning, so each
The
one has.
next page, the chart references 20.
Okay, that's what I thought off the top of my head it was.
Okay, so let's put that in the definition right there.
And again, I mean, they're talking about drainage and things like that. And the thing is that only pertains to certain areas.
Yeah, well, these buffers are only pertain to if you destroy the buffer.
Exactly.
So if you
If
don't,
there's a natural buffer,
Yeah, if
obviously
there's-
you don't need
and
to
like the one
replace
between my house and and Tamara's house is, like, we walk through there.
Yeah.
And I mean, we trim our trees so we can walk through there between our 2 houses. I mean, I'm not gonna come in and add more trees. If somebody new, somebody outside, they're gonna come and do that. It's only if
Yeah,
we do
Well,
something to
buffer-
trees that are already there.
The buffer between our houses is basically a small forest, so.
Only their lot.
so we must provide 100% visual barrier, maybe that.
I mean, if it was already there, if it was 100% before, and then somebody came in and, I mean, I might be mad as a neighbor, you,
Believe me, I've got Georgia Power around me, so they're like, but there is some buffers there, but I still see them.
right, I mean, if you had that before, and then you just, if it was there before and you destroyed it, you should put it back the way it was.
I don't know if that would pertain to that.
Buffers
I mean-
must be replanted where sparsely vegetated or where disturbed for approved access and approved utility crossings to meet the following standards. So buffers must be replanted. So maybe like where buffers are destroyed.
It
or
says up there, it
removed.
says, but under B, buffers must be replanted where sparsely vegetated or where disturbed.
Okay. And then so B, this one is supposed to, is indented out this way,
Yes, and
maybe
it
it
should be under.
underneath. Okay, that was a little confusing. So
Then they just add buffer under section 2 definition.
Right, cause this is only, I mean,
Buffers.
this only applies if you destroyed
in
it.
disturbed buffers, maybe. So in number 2, put the number of planting road for trees replacement in disturbed buffers. I think that might be a way that someone's gone and disturbed what was there. Mentioning, instead of like, me and my neighbors like to, walk through and visit each other, and that would. Yeah, that's a choice of the neighbors, right? Yeah, so, kind of,
Okay, so here's your buffer on the next page.
Yeah, I was gonna say, our trees are still between our houses, we just trimmed it so we don't poke our eyes out when it's dark.
yeah, so that 100%, that number should be worked on, I think.
What are you on?
I was going back to that number 1, like the 100% thing, that seems like. That's a lot of vegetation, 100%, right?
In 2 years, that means you planted some trees close together.
Yeah. Okay,
I mean, do you think it should say a visual barrier to 100%, or should be at a height within 6 years of planting with the visual to be what it was prior to the destruction?
yeah, I think that's better prior to place,
You don't think so?
I think,
You can't cover everything,
yeah,
and I think you can get too wordsmithy. As you said earlier, and I'm like Harry mentioned earlier, I've shown a lot of property on the loop road, as I call it. It's beautiful flat land, forested, and then it'll drop off to the creek. Well, somebody buys this tract of land and they join the property owner, been there for 50 years. And there's always 100%. I mean, it's 100%.
yeah, I would say remove that 100%, I think, because, even if trees grows, you're not gonna have, that vegetation's gonna be at the top of the tree, you'll have the, at the bottom, like I thin my woods out, so I can see through the trees.
But
But
the
100%.
existing property owner is used to seeing 100%.
Yeah,
And obviously they can't control the other side because they don't own it. But I think that I'm interpreting that's what the intention of the original committee was, is to kind of keep the aesthetic as similar as possible to the existing property owners.
must provide a barrier.
That's why they put in the 100%
Yeah,
buffer to grow within 2 years, and no one can get out there and monitor it.
yeah, right, it just seems like 100% is a lot.
The buffer.
I mean,
But if you go out there and you say, okay, I'm here to buy some trees, and this is what what we're required to buy, what do you suggest I put in here? This is where I live. They're gonna steer you in the right direction of what type of tree you got to have that's gonna meet this requirement, so you're not out there with planting the seed of a oak tree from a little tiny,
Okay,
I think that if you,
I learned that lesson building a house in Florida once.
not good.
No, when the trees that I bought and the trees that were sold were 2 different things, but. You just gotta be careful with that.
That actually makes it.
okay, that's what we're with. So this is someone else's chart, I guess, or did y'all come up with this chart yourself? The buffer width chart?
I don't remember, I think we
No,
had.
that was part of another plan. We didn't
Okay,
come up
so
with it. We
that-
just looked it over and made sure that it was comprehensive to what we were doing.
Does that fit into with the buffers we have, describing, like single family and for for our zoning districts.
These buffers are a lot larger than most of our stuff.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know that we go anything larger than 20 feet required buffer, do we?
Mhm,
Because I think it's mostly smaller.
mhm.
so that might
So I
be,
think we could just do that and say a minimum of 2 planting rows.
Yeah.
yeah.
And
Something,
move that back to the other page and get rid of that.
Yeah,
The number of, the number of planting rows for trees, placements and buffers should be a minimum of 2 rows for 20 feet or less.
and that's what we're saying the buffer would be along like a R1, I guess.
Yeah, I think R1 is the most restrictive for buffers and it's 20
20
feet.
feet, I think that's a good one, because these other, you know, I know we're gathering from other people's work, so let's make it pertaining to Little Falls, and maybe that will help the council.
Yeah,
And if you're doing it in the rows like that, you can get some trees that'll grow out. in 2 years.
keep in mind too that we've set up the probability of having a large scale building right next to a single family home.
Yes, we sure have, haven't we?
So we need to be careful about going forward. Like I said, there's no one plan that fits all.
Right.
So we don't wanna leave anybody in the dust,
Yeah.
and we don't wanna confine everybody to certain rules and
What is-
regulations that don't really fit them.
What is
So
that
there's a lot of
new way
different things
for
going on in this town.
multifamily, the 20 per acre or something like that, they did? 20 units per acre, or 12, 16?
12, I think.
12,
It was 12.
12, okay, super lot. Okay. If that fits, it's. But anyway, that's a whole different.
All right, so we're gonna get
Whole
rid
Not
of,
your
different ballgame.
so we're gonna get rid of that and just keep the top line and just incorporate it into the paragraph.
I think so.
Okay, that makes sense. I don't have a problem with that.
I think number C is good.
Mhm.
And it's a 10-foot setback, that I was saying 20 foot was the actual width. And then 10 foot is a setback, the improvement setback.
Okay. The encroachment buffers. He's good too.
And I think the whole ordinance is based on protecting the mountain district, which is everything we have here.
Yeah, well, that's where that little bit of difference comes in from what we're putting in the body of it, and then that kind of singles out that mountain district because of the ridge and the slopes and a lot of other things.
But those are special environments, right? When you're on a ridge that affects everyone down below you. And so I think. And I think like a lot of people on the ridge too, they like the integrity of that ridge. But it does single out just people who live above 2,200 feet. But you know, the whole,
That's why
mountain-
they bought it.
Well,
Yeah.
2,000
Yeah.
feet,
I'm
2,000
with
feet
you.
is,
I like seeing ridge lines and I don't like
And that's
seeing.
why they bought their house, was
Yeah.
to see that too.
well,
Yeah.
2,000 feet is a pretty general mark. In that even in Firewise, the community won't allow fires above 2,000 feet. So there's a lot of markers around that particular designation. And I think that when you live above that, I think there's a lot of particular considerations that you need to have about your property, about your neighbors,
Yeah.
you know, and about what's going on as far as, because let's face it, if somebody did come in and make a catastrophic mistake, it affects everybody's property prices and their livelihood up there.
Yeah.
And that's really what we're getting at with these ordinances and why we need to consider the Firewise
Yeah.
initiative and erosion control. What bothers me is when they talk about Firewise, they don't mention one or the other. And they should. And quite frankly, erosion control and fire control should go hand in hand. And, you know, when you start talking about what causes more damage, water causes more damage to property than fire does, and that's just the statistics right now. And that may change, but there's a lot more water damage to property than there is fire damage. But I think both of them should be considered. And in this tree ordinance, you know, we have to think about both.
Yeah.
And that's why the 60 foot off of property allows them that 30 feet minimum that's suggested.
In Firewise, yeah.
And, you know, I think we need to think about that, but again, we also need to get people who thinking about erosion control in certain areas.
Percentage slope, 25% or greater, for at least 500 feet. So they're kind of specified as, you know, that danger, that slope, and how that is affected, you know, by water, by runoff. And if you remove all trees, then it's just gonna, you know.
Yeah, I think it's up to the council to tell us if they don't like that, why?
If they don't like the protected mountain district classification, but this was, so I go back to Zell Miller, was former governor of Georgia. He was from, Young Harris, and he came up with, I guess, the blueprint for this protected mountain district, stuff, and it was to protect the integrity of the water, the land, and the aesthetics of the mountains. But it's not liked by a lot of people, because the developers want to come in and they want to have the freedom, they don't want to have to go jump through the hoops. And I mean, I get that. If I was a developer, I wouldn't want to have to do it either. But I think the whole mountain district protection was very well thought out when this kind of blueprint came out, but it did get a lot of pushback because people, you know, wanted to be able to stick a house where they want to stick a house, put a septic tank on a steep lot, you know, but it's.
Yeah, but you just can't have the best of both worlds.
Yeah, I think.
You can't have everybody wanting to live here because of that,
You wanna do it?
and then remove it.
I'd rather be a Carmel, California than be a Maggie Valley, North Carolina. And I don't know if it's, Carmel's like protected, you know, you guys, so you walk through the city, you never, I mean, it's like billionaires who live there, but it's trees and it's quaint, and they've protected it by implementing more restrictive kind of zoning and land protection, ordinances. And if you look at kind of where everything else has been done, in many places, they'll just like massacre places. And
Well,
all for this-
Gatlinburg's a good,
yeah,
Gatlinburg's a really good example, and that's a Firewise community.
Yeah, they have.
Believe it
a
or not,
fire,
it's a Firewise community. The
Yeah.
thing that you can't protect against is outside influences.
Yeah.
And
Money,
I think we should talk about with the Firewise, I think we should talk about education of renters and people that come here for a short period of time.
yeah,
They need to be made aware that setting the fire or in unprotected areas, it's not doable.
yeah,
Or a renter coming in and making an unsafe environment for everyone else. Let's face it, we don't think the same.
yeah. okay.
People that are permanently established here and renters and subsequent don't think the same, and those are things that need to be considered in our ordinances, so.
So this, the whole mountain, protected mountain district. I mean, it cites, acts, state ordinances. In several places, so those things are, I mean, they're enacted. And so the criteria put out through the state, OCGA, like 12-7-1. So all that stuff seems like that's already part of what the law is.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to read that in there, just to alert people that there's criteria laid out that, you know, of how we deal with sewage, and septic tanks, and erosion and sedimentation.
Well, I think one problem that the council's having with this is when you look at like under protection criteria, if you look under and go to, I believe it's H, structure shall not exceed more than 40 feet. The highest point at which the foundation, if you read down there, it includes antennas. If you look at the top of our mountain, there's a giant antenna on top of there, that's gonna create a problem for them. Because we
What's
can't,
existing?
But this is for structure, structure.
So that's-
seed.
so that would not include that because it'd be grandfathered in.
I'm not an attorney, but it's hard to go back.
Yeah, I would think that would have to be granted.
The height restriction is substance.
Which I'm fine with.
Yeah,
Okay,
that, those are grandfathered.
But
I'm
going-
not an attorney.
But going forward, I mean, I wouldn't want another one on the other side.
yeah, I wouldn't either.
A question, Sissy, if I could,
Absolutely.
before we get off this page of section 6. The last two lines, the mountain protection district should be further defined and delineated on the mountain protection district map. Reference to the next section map. Do you have a map designating that? I'm not aware of that.
We don't right now.
Would you just not remove that?
Well, I think we need that because that's part of the protection.
But it's already defined in what the district is.
Yeah, so we don't have it
So take
designated on
out
the
those
map
two
as far
lines.
as.
Again, I'm not an attorney, but at the top of the paragraph, you're defining the mountain protection district is blah, 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 blah.
All this, yeah.
So
But anything above 2,200, but,
We just don't have on a map showing you where it is.
yeah. So, I mean, we just need, I think it needs to stay in there.
Yeah,
I
I
think we
think-
need it to be identified.
I think we can.
White County has one. Oh, wow. White
and
County,
and
Georgia.
technical is a jurisdiction of the city, the town,
There's White County.
on the second line.
Interesting.
Well, and that would be my thing, if we don't have a map, if we don't need a map, take it out of there, if we need a map, get a map.
I think we need a map.
I think we need them out too.
And submit that to the council with your package.
Yeah, so Helen has,
Unless
White
you
County
say-
has one on theirs.
Subject
Say you
to
want
get
to.
county members.
Oh, yeah.
Because it'll only
I
affect
guess I'll go there.
Hickory Nut Mountain and Jane,
Jane heard part of that, yes.
and that's the only two places that are highly elevated.
I believe.
Well, you know, again, Hickory Nut Mountain is actually singled out on the Firewise.
Well, there's a sign by your house.
Well, yeah, that's on there.
I just don't, I would clarify by the town attorney, do you need to have a map?
Yeah,
I
And
think
if
we
you do,
definitely
get it, if you don't, then strike out those two
Yeah,
sentences.
like we have a zoning map.
You
with
already
all the
designate
zoning.
2,200 square feet, I mean, we have a sign that there where there's 22.
Some people have to see it.
Yeah,
We could incorporate that into the general zoning map too, with a, just add it, the mountain, add that district onto the zoning
well,
map.
what comes first, the map or the ordinance?
Ordinance.
Ordinance.
Yeah, I think you create the map from the ordinance. I mean,
And it could just be a simple zoomed in section of Hickory Nut Mountain, Tallulah View, all of that, and then over there in Chamber. From here in like, you know, the purple line or something, from here up, you are
yeah,
in that district.
So there's F on this thing, it talks about single family dwellings shall not be constructed at a density of more than 1 per acre at and no such acre shall be less than 100 feet wide of the building site. Less than 100 feet wide. Then it has exemptions from that all below, so I think offering those exemptions is for people who are, anything that was prior to this is okay for it to be in violation, so I think that's kind of important having that in there, I mean, it could be removed, but I think it adds protection for people who.
I don't think anybody on Hickory Nut can split theirs. I don't think there's any parcels that are be able to be split, but over on Jane Hurt. Well, to meet the rest of your building stuff, I don't think you can. on Jane Hurt, they have bigger parcels that could be split over there, so. You'd have to leave that in here.
Yeah, well, one per acre, right? So you keep a 1 acre minimum at 2,200 or above feet. It keeps density up the top of the mountain.
Yeah, and all of this is talking about
Unless
just that protected
someone
area.
does the multifamily up there and build a hotel,
No, but you could over there, maybe, possibly,
yeah, I'm fishing for that.
nothing but over here.
There's a, I don't have the map here, but there's a tract of land that's on commercial doing
Oh, that is true.
Seventeenth Street,
Oh.
probably over 2,000 feet, somewhere on that.
That's
Um,
true.
Right up along the lake,
No, it's,
No.
turn left at the boat dock and go up.
oh, okay. That's, by Rubens too, like,
Did we ever establish who owns that house that's caving in? I know we talked about it. Through the last meeting or,
You and I talked about it. We talked about it.
but I don't, did we figure out who owned it, right?
so that's right.
It is a lot. It's not a-
It's owned by
And the one that says structures shall not exceed more than 40 feet, it does exempt chimneys and flagpoles, blues, spires, steeples.
Our zoning doesn't allow anything over 35 feet. And that will be established
Radio towers are included, television towers
2 sessions
are
ago.
exempt.
32 or 35, I think was the tallest you could get for everything was. That,
35.
All that seems good to me.
I think we
So
should change
should we
that
change
40 to
that?
35.
Yeah,
Okay,
To match
Anyway,
something.
there you go. Yeah, I like the number I like that. A commercial structure shall contain a detailed landscaping plan. Especially if it's parked next to someone's house.
Well, most of the time you wouldn't have to have that anyway, at least you would,
Mhm.
to get your financing.
Mhm.
I don't know if the protection of those around the commercial endeavor. Keep it the village. Then it goes on, no, nothing in the subject to be construed to require commercial structures to comply with the density provision subsections. Urban to shall remove more than 50% of existing trees. So what is that about? The one that talks after there's. It's talking about commercial stuff, and it's number J or letter J. You know, remove more than 50% of the existing trees.
Now, we're still talking about in this mountain, but
Yeah,
still up high. You
Okay,
can't-
okay. But now they're at 50% and we were at 25%.
well, yeah, this one's, well,
And this is commercial. So I would drop that number down to 25%.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. And I think there's somewhere for exemptions, there's an agriculture and forestry exemption.
That's probably because, like I said, we took this part from another one that already had it, and they may have more area that's actually in above that 2,200 foot.
Mhm.
Their town might be up, in general, up higher than ours.
Hazardous waste, I like all that. There's an erosion one right there, number M, talks about erosion and runoff. And road development. mining activity.
Yeah,
Strike that.
I was thinking about.
Might be mining gravel, something like that.
I don't think you're gonna get a permit from the state for that.
Yeah. It's like that Vulcan, I'm not gonna do it. That mountain's coming to come down over
Yeah,
the
and-
years, hasn't it? You just-
I used to live right across from
Oh, you
it,
did?
and now you couldn't see the top of the name.
Yeah, it's amazing how much gravel's come out of there. Yeah, swimming pool one day for us. And then,
Did you ever go to the top of it and see that oak?
I did not, man, I used to drive my Jeep up in there way back before they put a gate on it.
It was just as clear blue as it could be.
Oh, wow, huh? Just so they caught up in all that granite?
Mhm.
Huh.
I mean, it wasn't big, it was big enough.
I mean, I like keeping all this for this commercial part.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm with you.
like I said, you're not, there might be one section, like you said, on the railroad that might fall into a little bit of this. And I don't, nothing over there is, all that's R1 over there, isn't it?
Where,
Jay Kern.
not for some of them they do. Still, I'm not have to look at that.
Your exemptions. I don't like the money activity one, so I'd get rid of that exemption. I mean, just by some strange chance that something weird happened, I mean, like nothing weird ever really happens in the world, right? They're gonna be mining by the Okefenokee now, so.
So we're gonna strike the mining
I'll
activity.
strike that.
What number are you at?
It's, B exemptions, B2.
So if I find gold on my property, that's gonna limit how much money I can make.
Well, you have to be sneaky, there's your little shaft, and don't tell anybody where you found that gold. If people know, they're gonna, your neighbors are gonna be digging for it.
Good luck. Kern Park.
Administration enforcement procedures. Site plan drawing at scale.
I still like, I like
I
all
like
of it.
that,
I like every bit of this part.
yeah, okay.
You're talking about a very minimal areas.
Yeah.
Possibly.
When it, like you're saying, what, do we have a map or is this something that's already like there for like the zoning under one? Under exemptions there, there's,
I think we have to,
we have to create it.
yeah,
I mean, that could be part of the problem why they didn't want to pass it, is because if we don't have something that we're writing about. I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking, reading their mind, I guess, but just like, they might want to be able to be like, what's this map you're talking about? We don't have a map. Okay, we deny you.
I think it has to be approved by the city council before we do.
Should make a map.
Nothing.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. What comes first, the map or the ordinance?
Yeah.
The ordinance,
Well,
And then the
okay,
map.
I thought you meant for.
that's what I
us.
was asking about.
Yeah,
I think they could pass the ordinance and then, so then, contingent on the map, and then a map being drawn, and then it could all go into effect.
Okay.
So it was like, I think that could definitely be, like,
That's
shouldn't
something I think,
hinder progress on this.
I think we should put that in the cover sheet that we were talking about.
All references to the map would be after this is approved.
Exactly.
Yeah, a map would be
You
drawn.
know, again, it gives the idea of. We know that that's a
That's in there.
key point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that
And-
could just be something they're like, okay, forget it.
Right, but I think, you know, that should be on that cover
Yeah,
sheet.
go to drawing the map up, and they're like, well, we're never gonna change all of this, so you just draw a map up for nothing, or you don't have that, you don't have
Yeah, yeah,
the boundaries. Just thinking.
And do we get someone to draw the map? Like, how does that work?
I don't think somebody like Georgia Municipal or GMRC would probably help with that, because
I think so. That's what I was gonna.
Georgia Mountain Regional.
Oh, yeah,
Division.
yeah, that's the word, yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no point asking them to create a map that.
Right, right.
Well, Mike, can I get clarification? Are you talking about map on this number one here?
Well, oh, that's the amount for the
That's the
plan
map
for
for
the
the actual
commercial.
plan for your lot.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Disturbance.
Oh, okay, yeah. I was-
Like,
Well,
your
and
like, if you, your
any
plan for your
map, yeah.
application,
Correct.
But there's,
That's how I read that.
yeah, that part I did see.
And if they don't like the filing fee or the application fee, that's something they should take out, because it's again on the next page, the applicant shall pay a filing fee as specified in the governing body.
that on, after all this
Yeah, yeah, but,
application. Yeah, so this is,
I mean, if they don't think they all fees could be waived, or fees could be waived under the mountain protection, or fees only apply to the mountain protection.
That's, yeah,
okay.
That's what I
Filing
mean.
Video
because
specified,
that's the part that's gonna be more,
That's what we're trying to protect here.
right,
yeah,
that's the part that's gonna be more, we're gonna wanna bring in professionals for versus at your house,
Yeah,
where you're more flat.
yeah,
Other than along the creeks and all that. None of that. is property.
duration, or we kind of skipped over a bunch of stuff, that we kind of think, oh, that's good.
yeah, I mean, that's,
The power of the zoning administrator shall have power to enforce provisions of the article. Maybe issue stop work orders, site violators, just, okay, so that might be. Where will that, this is, I went back a little bit, I'm just jumping around there, powers of the zoning administrator.
What number are you on?
It's on D.
I'm not really-
Yeah, which D?
under the.
I got them there.
Okay,
Powers of that, so. Earlier, the chief was gonna be handling stuff, and then the zoning administrator would be, is that the chief of police, or is
well,
that?
now, we're still talking on mountain protection here. so
Yeah,
I think,
I think zoning for that too. Because
The other
the
one
chief
could
was just going out to look,
okay, that,
but
yeah,
they're, all-
On the
but she was
trees.
more considered
So-
to be like an officer of the zoning, like she does
the
the,
law, yeah, the law.
just here and then brings it back and says to the zoning administrator, yes, it complies.
And that would be, like, zoning administrator would be Sissy, right? Or all
No,
of us?
that's Linda.
Oh, Linda, okay. Multiple hats,
yeah,
clerk,
Yeah.
zoning administrator, okay, yeah, I see that, that's good then, I want to clear, like. It would be our responsibility to manage it. What about that review procedures? 30 days,
I mean, I think on a commercial piece at the top,
oh, is this all still commercial then?
yes,
This
it's
is all
all
still
commercial. I think
protection.
commercial needs to be looked at a lot more
Yeah.
heavily than just a single family.
Sorry, I thought I jumped and I thought we were on just a general provision, so.
no, it goes all the way down to the permit.
Cause they have a lot more in their application that they have to do.
Penalties and fines for non-compliance, is that still in commercial?
It is.
Okay.
Some of that's a little much.
Of the G one, and that penalties and fines, is that what you're talking?
Yeah, the penalties for violations, I don't know. I mean. Each tree cut, topped or trimmed, I mean,
Yeah,
let's,
Where at?
I mean, we're, you know,
Under G, penalties and fines and non-compliance.
That
That's
just, I think
something-
the per tree cut puts teeth into it. I mean, like I've lived in places, lady, she's a friend of mine, she couldn't get tree permits. So she just had people cut all the trees down in her front yard, and she took the like $4,000 fine, and she had to plant trees around the neighborhood, and, but she's like, she didn't care. So, but she did have to pay for each of those trees, so it did add up. So some people, I mean, they have the pockets, the deep pockets, and they might say, screw it, I'll do it. So at least it'd be a windfall of cash if someone does do it. And then you have to figure out what the fines would be, of course, but I think fines on should be definitely part of the enforcement arm of. Otherwise, you have an ordinance that doesn't have any teeth to it, so, but.
Where are you reading that part about first
It's,
reading?
it's down lower. It's down lower. Penalties and violations. I was past this. It's about a page lower, I think.
That's right. For clerical stuff might help with the number of pages.
Yeah.
Yeah.
J, which J?
If they got unstable.
I'll just cut top the trend on permits. So that's a whole new thing. You know, we're out of commercial permits and fees.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was still listening to commercial.
It's kind of confusing because we're talking about tree ordinance and then we have the mountain district, to wrapped in and. It's like. But will the mountain, preservation district be a part of the tree ordinance?
It is, it's just more strict.
Okay, okay.
And I think everybody in Reagan County, every city should have that. I'm gonna take this to Mountain City and say, we need this.
Yeah, right now you see a lot changing up high, go toward like towards Highlands too. There's like lots of holes opened up.
Well, some of these ideas came from,
Scott Valley.
yeah, it's down down.
Okay. These are also good sound graphic. I think that's in here though. Where they cut that lot behind my house, I can hear the 4-lane now louder than ever, and I can see lights. Lights for the road, because there's the 4 lanes up here, and then the park. Then you go back up the hill of my house, I look up the back across that, and every now and then I'd see like a light. But now I see like the lights coming and, you know, as Georgia Power's land does, so. I was talking to them the other day and I've heard that at my dog's former playground. He said, yeah, but you know, that's her land. That's not like her land.
So somebody read on here, add an extension under C, failure to remove any trees cut or debris from trees top trimmed within 14 days of completion will be considered a violation and fine up to $100 per day unless an extension is granted by the zoning. Well, I can tell you, I had some trees cut 6 months ago. One of them's still laid. So I'm in violation.
Extend that.
Well, I mean, it's unless it is extended by or granted by the zoning administrator, so.
Yeah.
So that would fall back on Linda. I mean,
Maybe that's why she wanted to have the extension added, so it didn't fall back on her to like maybe 30 days or something, right? So she's not having to arbitrarily decide, well, I'll give you this extension, but you're not getting the extension because you didn't bring me any cookies at Christmas.
Yeah, I would just change that to 30 days.
Yeah.
I'm still in violation.
Let's see, 180 days. Yeah, that's a tough one, right? There's sometimes like life gets in the way, it's hard.
Well, the tree is way down there. It was.
Well, it says an extension granted by the zoning administrator.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
if life is happening to you, the zoning administrator is gonna be reasonable.
Yeah.
One would-
Well, and if they're coming back and they have their equipment breakdown or something, they're coming back to take care of it all.
Well, and the thing too that you have to remember is, this is about trees being permitted to be cut. So it's a follow through with what you've already asked for. But now if a tree falls down in your backyard, there's no requirement. This is about trees being purposefully removed.
Yeah.
So you did half the job by cutting it down. And now basically it's fuel for fire.
Yeah.
So this goes along with the Firewise community. Every tree that's fallen here that we do purposely and we don't get rid of, adds to fuel
And that
problems.
was one of the things that they filled out. They said that we as a town did a horrible job at that. We got the lowest grade for that in that Firewise.
For
Great.
fallen trees and not
So,
cleaning them up.
Not taking care of fallen trees.
Oh, yeah, I see it every day.
So at the bottom of this, number, letter F, number F. That too. Yeah, I don't even know how to contact the police chief, because they had one number I got was the Haversham County's,
Dispatch.
dispatch, and I'm in Raven County, and they
We have a
said,
mutual aid agreement.
well, you know, they didn't know that when I contacted, because I called about something one day, and they said, you have to call Raven County, that's the Haversham dispatch, I can't remember what it was for.
So the
Oh,
police
the
chief knows,
non-emergency
again,
number.
it all depends.
Yeah.
On any company.
Yeah, who you're talking to, dispatch people are, but I thought that was, and then so I just called Raven County Sheriff, there was some nonsense going on down at the park, I believe. and I was on it, but I was like, cause I didn't used to have her number, but I felt like, she don't want me to be calling her at home on her when she's off, so I thought, just call her County, but.
She's usually looking at citations. It's pretty rough.
Look at the camera citation.
Oh, my.
Sorry.
We have a thing, they give
Oh.
us like a statement at school to say if they call us, because they think it's like the pictures that they take for people speeding, so they call the school and they think it's, why'd you give us a ticket? Well, you were speeding anyway, but we don't say anything, we're just like, it's not us.
Well, they can't pay it here, they come down here. Here, they can't pay it here.
No, they just call to
499.
complain and they think that like we had some, yeah, like it's meant to like
Yeah.
protect kids that drive here.
Yeah, hopefully kids won't get hurt.
3007.
Oh, wow.
Most close.
By this time in the evening with the time change, my mind.
Oh, it's torturing me. Yeah.
And then the non-emergency number for Raven County is 782-622-6. Yeah. All right, well, we've been in the meeting for an hour and a half, so.
Yeah.
So the rest of this is just, lumps and percentages and. Names of trees.
I was gonna say, do we even need that if we have this mountain district where you're gonna be required to go up? I mean, we put this in there to show people, and that might have confused them too.
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, I
I think
really
they need
think,
to come back and tell us what's wrong with it.
right, I think we should submit and then. Come back and revise again and resubmit. And call it a day,
Well-
rather than,
Like page 5 here, with update, after those correct info.
Or what?
Under the Firewise.
Oh, yeah. William,
Just confirm those people there.
So. let
yeah,
me-
they're not here.
Correct, I think if you submit it to the council, just make sure.
Oh, they gave that to us
Yeah, they gave
to
that.
look
to us.
at, to make sure we.
That's
we're
what I was
using
talking about, when
this
we got
To
here,
guide us for the tree work.
that Firewatch program was established over 10 years ago. And it's really, some of it doesn't even apply, but the thing is about the Firewise program is that's supposed to be a community effort. Something that involves everyone. You're supposed to have like a meeting or so, every once in a while, everybody puts their input. We talk about underbrush.
Education.
Exactly right. And another thing that was brought to my attention, something that's really important is evacuation routes.
yeah,
There is none.
But it says in here that they should create a plan on how you're going to evacuate on the areas that only have one way in and one way out. I've never seen a plan.
There is no point.
and roll the windows up and drive really fast.
Before we
Establish
move
and
on,
review annually an evacuation plan for the mountain community.
Well, another thing that they bring up is
What do you want me to do?
a roadway is supposed to have passage for evacuation and emergency response.
Yeah.
That's definitely an issue.
But before we move on, can we go ahead and get an approval, a motion on the recommendations to send back to the city council on what was discussed tonight?
Yeah, were we gonna do a cover sheet on it? 'Cause
Yeah, Christie, can you?
Okay, questions?
I was actually thinking that maybe, you know, I don't even know if we can get this to them. We'll have another meeting
Yeah.
before theirs.
Yeah,
So I
Well,
was
we can
thinking
all
that
work
maybe,
on it, too.
maybe we should table this until our next meeting and try to tighten it up a little bit, and then we can submit it.
Maybe something we could use, maybe if anyone has an interest, you just what you think a cover letter should be, and we can look at our different ideas and merge that into one at the next meeting. Just kind of.
so we have a motion to table the tree ordinance, for further discussion and
In preparation for the next meeting.
there you go. But we don't want this to go for another 2 years.
No.
Yeah.
No,
All right, so Harry, you making that? motion
yeah,
to
yeah, I'll
table?
make that motion to table it for the next meeting.
Christie seconded it. All in favor?
I'm sorry, yes.
It'll be the second Wednesday.
Yes, it's I just got it on my calendar. It's April the 10th.
Yeah, point of clarification.
Yeah,
What? Why is this, Firewise plan in here?
It was added to the agenda when we first, opened up the meeting. It was given to us, asking us to take a look at it.
Just a guide for what they recommend.
an email was sent by the mayor that we didn't want to restrict people from being able to be Firewise compliant with the tree ordinance if they so wanted to be. Which I think tonight we've established that we actually go further than the Firewise plan wants to, as far as individual
Oh.
homes and buildings.
Because we have that 60 foot instead of the 30 foot that they have, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and whereas
Good point.
my issue is that the Firewise plan doesn't incorporate any erosion control. And again, here we are talking about a tree ordinance and we're not talking about erosion control. Now, I realize that fire compliance is important and I think it should be a big part of this. But I also think equally important is erosion control. And you can't talk about one without the other. So all those things were
Oh,
thought about, you know, not only by ourselves, but by other people that came up with
That's a
these
good point.
plans.
We do have a little,
So
you know, more.
it's not that we're not thinking about the Firewise plan. It's that the Firewise plan is giant gray area that probably needs to be thought about some more as far as being implemented and, you know, as a community, if we wanna maintain being a Firewise community, I think there's more to it than just what was done 10 or however many years ago, we called all these people together and came up with the problem areas and what we thought about doing. And then what? When, I mean, I don't even know if this was ever talked about again or what's been implemented. I have no idea. I've never seen been brought up. I've never seen an evacuation plan or anything else for that matter.
well, maybe that's what we need to send back to the council is, all right, we want to see public education. We want to see erosion control incorporated. We want to see, evacuation plans. And let them give that to us and then we take a look at it.
And this also says wide
I don't
roadways
think
and.
those exist.
I'd bite these things off one at a time.
Yeah.
And
Hmm,
I'd bite these off one at a time, you deal with the tree ordinance that y'all been dealing with for years. The erosion control is typically covered by EPD, they have that jurisdiction over us, is my understanding, try and stay in your lane.
well, I mean, there is a erosion control ordinance, right? I mean, it's,
Well, it's by
It's in-
EPD.
It's,
Yeah.
it's all,
but,
by the
I mean,
state.
it's adopted by the city though too, right?
The city changed it to match theirs.
Okay.
Right,
So you've already got, when I was hearing Harry earlier, EPD's already got that lane handled.
Mhm.
Whether it's on flat land running off into the creeks or coming down the slope of the mountain. You're dealing with trees. And fire wise is an important item and deal with that as a separate item because as you said, that gets into education. I mean,
It gets into width of roads, you know, and
Well,
I mean,
and
it talks
Linda,
about. all
Linda
kinds of
said that
stuff.
Firewise was a community thing that the council didn't start it. The community said they wanted to do it and
Oh.
did all that, and then it just hasn't done.
They wanted it, but no one's done anything to clear the
Beyond.
brush and,
gotta stay focused on. Okay.
Yeah, I think that was just given to us to say, keep these things
Is your
in
next
mind.
project?
No, I think it was meant to say, keep these things in mind about what this
right, like I
program
said,
says,
it doesn't wanna restrict.
but it's not,
Got it.
just to build our ordinance, so we're not trying to go against what they say is the best way to handle things, and none of our stuff does.
yeah.
Because we, like I said, we allow 60,
Mhm.
up to 60, and then they say a minimum of 30, so you've got 30 feet there that we're not.
Exactly.
And there was one
Okay.
diagram that talked about like, so it gave the different zones around the house. I don't think maybe it's further back here. Oh, there it is, yeah. Tree spacing might be one. But even in this tree spacing, I mean, we go back to like not removing 25%, more than 25%. I think that's doable, even having these different zones, 5 to 30 feet.
Now, you were the
Trees.
Firewise part of it? now?
Yeah, I thought, so that might be something they were talking about trying to incorporate, but even in that, you know, trees are clumps of trees, so you could design the removal of 25% of trees and probably fit this criteria here. I would guess.
Well, that's more for planning from new.
Yeah.
You know what I'm
our
saying?
ordinance-
Like the existing, because if you're talking about existing, that would be called thinning. And you would go through and you would thin.
So you could fit into this criteria though, I think, right?
Not so much
It
because
depends on
you got
where.
percentages.
Yeah, that's true.
And what it
Yeah,
looks
like
like.
talking about on a steep hill, you probably couldn't, right? As
Like I
much.
could probably do more in my backyard,
Right.
because I've got my whole side
Yeah,
yard of my
yeah,
lot
that's
that's
it.
covered completely.
There,
Yeah,
18 feet, 12 feet, 6 feet, yeah, 60 feet from the house.
and we're not telling you you can't build your house right next to a tree either.
Yeah.
We're not saying you can't do that.
We're just saying.
If you
it's
wanna
not a
do that,
good
that's the
idea.
risk you're taking.
Right,
Your insurance company might have something to say about it, but
mine came and told me after I had this holly bush, it was as tall as my house, and it was touching it, and I was like. They came and like took a picture of it and sent
they
it to me,
probably put a drone.
yeah.
Okay, so I just read Mike's email. I see what it's saying now, so. Okay, so,
We did consider it, you know, we talked about it the whole time, and quite frankly, like you said, after we get through this. I think we should probably talk about it some more,
yeah.
since it's been brought up,
Yeah.
you
And we
know.
probably
And it's a very,
educate, not
It's
only
a-
the city
Education
council.
is huge.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very-
Absolutely.
it's a very big deal to
Yeah,
know that we
yeah.
only have one way off.
Mhm.
And if the fire occurs below our house, what are we gonna do? And not only that, but is somebody gonna be in charge of helping the elderly people?
Right,
They have a
Exactly.
plan, right, they're sure the
I mean, like, what if
evacuation
you're,
plan.
what if you're at work?
Yeah.
Your mom's gonna need help getting home, getting out and going. And so is that gonna be like, okay, I'll pick up the phone and call you and say, hey, do you want me to do this? And here, you already know where we're gonna go, because this is already the plan for us to get over here, or like Mr. Morris. He's gonna, he's gonna need
Absolutely.
somebody to come help him,
No,
or
I think-
tell him.
I think what the mayor suggested is good, but it's the community involvement with the fire department on how to
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't-
educate and implement.
right, I don't wanna use the Firewise as an excuse to restrain certain things. That we're trying to do as a community.
mhm.
I think Firewise should be an idea that everybody has in the back of their
Awesome
head,
idea, yeah.
that, you know.
And here's why you shouldn't
Well,
build your tree.
We don't
grass
wanna
next to the
use
tree.
the Firewise community as a restriction. Or an invitation to cut trees down.
Yeah.
You know, Firewise and cut all my trees down, now I don't have to worry about my house burning down. So,
Yeah,
we're
it's
doing a lot
more
of
of an outreach.
foundations
Let's,
cracking.
you know, let's get the word out, and maybe after the couple of meetings, we can have a public meeting.
so we're all in agreement that we're gonna table it,
Yeah, you
So-
made the motion
so,
or not?
so the next, and, there isn't anything else we need to talk about?
Yes, we have to open the floor for the discussion, which we have here, but is there anybody on Zoom that would like to speak?
No more, oh, you have it.
Just clarification, the decision today, you're tabling it. What month are we in March? So April, you're gonna come back and possibly have a document to then submit to the council. Cause they're gonna have time, obviously the next day, they're not gonna vote on it, they have time.
And they're not gonna have a meeting this month, so it's probably gonna be May or June before they actually.
Start dying, correct, okay, I'm just trying to get an idea, and I appreciate your time because my livelihood is real estate. And I just confirmed with the park ranger, there's been over 1 million visitors there, I'm expecting that to increase. People all over Tallulah Falls, I'm not talking about just the mountain, all over asking questions like this. So. Yeah, I appreciate y'all looking at this and,
So you think the
Moving
property
forward.
prices,
excuse me?
property prices are gonna go up?
They've already gone up significantly, my friend. I don't know how much more they're gonna go up.
Along with
Well,
everything
depending
else.
on, quite frankly, if you go in and allow to do all this clear cut and.
Exactly,
The
that's
ridge
what,
line is for sale right now and.
exactly, and that's our point, I mean, we have to look at everything, not just our mountain, all. Oh, that, and you brought up a good point, there's something else that I wanted to talk about. And this really isn't in our wheelhouse, but we have signs for Tallulah Falls that aren't looking really nice. If you're coming, south, I believe that sign right there has been hit by a tree. It's not looking real pretty at all, and I think some sign maintenance is really in order, and if I remember right, I thought we brought this up like a year ago.
All the no parking signs around the bridges on my side of.
I would
the
really
road,
love to see
people
some
parking
sign
places.
maintenance on our particular
There
signs.
used to be no parking and then. when
We
the
as
signs were
we
there,
as a
people were still
group here
parking
can't
because
really
there's no
enforce
enforcement
people
of
to do things with their
it.
signs.
With all the.
If Tallulah
coming
Falls
in
signs
and
aren't
out,
looking,
It's just like in the bridge
100%.
below at White Camp
Yeah.
Road.
so
Well,
that's
fine.
another thing that I
Trying
think
to
we should
get there
be
during the
thinking about for
summertime.
maybe the next
Because people
meeting.
park right now.
We'll talk
I'll
about
pass that
that.
on to
Yeah, and
them.
just like.
We
there's
want
no
to
parking
take a look at the
signs.
sign ordinance and enforcing.
Yes.
Well, on that note, Sissy, at the last council meeting, they authorized, I get Gary and his wife's last name. They are volunteers that have served the community every May through the summer.
Mhm.
And those are usually job items that he enjoys doing.
Yeah,
Okay.
well, I think it needs, I think the one there needs to be repainted. I really think that it needs to be brought up to par. I mean, it's the little Falls, so let's be proud, right? I mean, we should be proud of where we live.
I don't think you noticed it so much until the tree brought your attention that it looks.
Yeah,
It
because
went from, here's the sign to all of a sudden, that's not, because I noticed it, I was like, that sounds dirty.
yeah, it's not right. It needs me, also I noticed there's a dead end sign, down.
Oh, this chair's turned right and then right.
I don't know if that's a DOT or.
And we're missing our sign for Hickory Nut, showing where it turns from River Street to Hickory Nut, it's gone.
Yeah. So these are, the signs really.
You
we need to
submit it
start-
to Linda and she.
talk to her about the dead end sign here and,
It's still, it was laying there.
yeah, it's laying there, it needs to be.
If it stays, it's gonna go away like our Hickory Nut one did. Lays there long enough, it's.
And I was gonna say, it would be nice if we could get something to Linda before the next meeting, just a cover sheet, but
Well, we've all got each other's emails.
yeah,
can
we
start-
might maybe do a work session or something if we can in the next month.
I still can't get my email to work on anything.
Really?
I don't know.
I came today to reset it, but it just keeps saying the domain isn't. I tried to do it on my computer, on my app, I mean,
Now, who are you using for the?
she said to use Outlook.
Yeah, that's what I've got.
Right, but when you go on for Outlook, there's about 10 of them.
Yeah, I know. So,
I sent you one. Did you get the one I
I
sent
think
you?
y'all have time.
I mean, I-
Like to sign off on it, y'all agree to everything.
I got your text message.
Do you
want text me, didn't you? Text
You'll
me.
have you'll have enough time, it would be on a Wednesday, that if everything's agreed with y'all would sign off and send it to the city. Their next meeting is the next day, not that they're gonna review it or make any decisions,
Yeah,
because they need more time, but at least do it then. So that's April, and then they would maybe start acting on it in May.
They just needed an update.
okay, if there's no more business before us, someone like to adjourn this meeting? Harry, second,
I'll second.
all right, all in favor,
Who gets the second?
they both did it at the same time, so you choose.
All in favor and is.
All. I have grandbabies, let's see that.